Hey, Zach, great to connect today. You've written a book called The Power of Mattering, and I've been doing research on mattering, so I look forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Nate. I'm excited to be here.
So, what have you learned about mattering that you would most like to share with others?
Mm. Well, first, that experiences of mattering happen in very small moments. In my research and my work, I've been astounded at the power of the right words at the right time to completely alter the trajectory of people's lives and career. And one example I'll give you comes from our research with janitors, university cleaners. In my first study on how people find meaningfulness in their work, we studied and embedded ourselves with a group of cleaners, often very overlooked, often invisible occupation. And we asked all of them about when they most felt that their work was meaningful. And I remember there was one woman who told me that she found the most meaning in her work when she was cleaning the bathrooms of these university dormitories
Hmm.
on Monday morning after the weekend. And I was a PhD student at the time, so you can remember this. I don't know if you remember studying qualitative research. You're not supposed to break out of the script, but I broke out of researcher mode and I said, that sounds disgusting. What do you mean? And she said, Zach, every time I go into that bathroom, I say to myself, I'm cleaning this bathroom so that these kids don't get sick. And there was something really elegant there, that so that mentality. And what we found is that people who experience high levels of mattering tend to have a so that mentality. They can link whatever it is that they're doing with its inevitable impact on others because they believe that they matter. But how did she find that? She went on to tell me that when she started this position, she was near homelessness. She applied to 15 jobs, all of them rejected her, and she just needed to put food on the table. And she got the position as a cleaner, and um, she said one of her friends asked her, couldn't you have done something more with your life? And she said she internalized that. She kept asking herself, why couldn't I have done something more? Why am I just a janitor? And she said that was when one supervisor noticed that she was struggling and he brought her into a break room and had her open this dictionary to the word custodian and had her read it out loud
Hmm.
as a person responsible for a building and everyone in it. And he said, that's you. You take custody of this building and everyone in it. Every one of these kids here is someone's precious child and they need you. And she tells me this. And she looked at me. She goes, "That was the first time in my life someone showed me that I was worthy." And I asked her. I said, "Did you ever thank that supervisor?" She goes, "I don't even remember his name. He got reassigned a month later." That one moment, that one moment of being shown the evidence of your significance, of her significance from someone else, ignited these beliefs. The belief that she was worthy, the belief that she was capable, the belief that she was needed. And she's now been at the university for over 30 years. She's one of the most sought after janitors. But that story we see repeated time and time again. That small moments, small interactions in our day is an opportunity for us to give someone the evidence of their significance. If I were to ask everyone listening right now, when you most feel that you matter to someone else, what are they doing? Chances are you're not going to describe getting an award, getting more money from them, some big action. You're going to describe a small interaction where someone sees you, hears you, shows you the difference that you make. And what I love about what her supervisor did is the dictionary showed her that she mattered. He didn't tell her that she mattered.
Hmm.
He showed her. And that's something that I think everybody can learn from is that it's easy to tell someone that they matter. It takes skill and intention to show someone exactly how they matter.
So, really interesting, this idea of the small moments. I'm thinking of, so I mentioned the research that I've been working on where we've been looking at mattering. And one of the interventions we did with a company is we had employees in a company where they did not feel very valued. They didn't feel like they mattered. Minimum wage type job where the companies in sense just the employees at times feel like, as long as they just a warm body shows up, that's all the company cares about. And the company's trying to make the employees feel like they matter. One of the things they did is they would host uh, curiosity circles or gratitude circles where somebody would get in the middle and people would just take turns either asking questions about that person, showing curiosity, or just expressing gratitude, saying thanks. And it was really interesting to see the way people reacted. Like a priori, yeah, we predicted like it would make people feel good, but it was like people would cry, people would get emotional because they felt like they mattered. They felt like they were being seen. And it, it,
Hmm.
it's a maybe it's a big thing in that it's like that's more of like a ceremony, but it's a little thing in that it's just like saying thanks or just asking people questions.
I was doing some work with a school. It was a private school, and we had all of their teachers together in an auditorium. And I asked them a question. I go, when have you most felt that you mattered in your work? And one woman in the front, like, immediately put her head down, like in her hands. And I stopped. I said, and she was visibly upset. And I said, hey, what's going on? Do you mind sharing? And she goes, I don't think I can answer that question. I'm just in payroll.
Hmm.
And I just do administrative processing. Anytime someone uses that word just, it's usually a signal of insignificance. But what happened next was pretty beautiful because a teacher on the side of in the other part of the auditorium raised his hand and said, no, 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 no. Like I wouldn't have a class if you didn't do your work. And then another person was like, you are always so quick, you're so efficient, you're so friendly. And all of a sudden these people around her started showing her the evidence of her significance right there. And she said that it's right now. Like right now in this room is the first time
Wow.
I felt like I mattered in 10, 12 years. But it's these little ways. Like gratitude is so important because gratitude, if you do it well and if you're specific with it, it shows someone the evidence of their significance. It reflects back to someone what's best about who they are, so that they can start believing it themselves. And it's small things, and what I mean by showing people the small ways, and you mentioned that company that was struggling maybe with morale. I worked with the National Park Service, and this leader works and oversees a bunch of facilities management teams. These are very high turnover, low morale jobs, low paid jobs in some of the harshest conditions. We think of national parks, we think of sunsets, vistas, and
Mhm.
hikes, but someone has to maintain that.
Yeah.
And I sort of observed what he did, and he had one practice that he said was the key to morale. He would go around and take pictures of different projects that his team worked on, like walking over a bridge that was repaired, visitors walking over a bridge, a new hiking trail, a bathroom that was repaired. So there was a shorter line for another bathroom. He would take pictures, and he just sent Friday morning, he sent an email, and it was called his Look What You Did email. And he just said, Look what you did. And he gave them pictures, and they couldn't argue with their significance. And I think that's what makes mattering and real meaningful gratitude different than just general appreciation, showing gratitude for who someone is generally, recognition, showing gratitude for what someone does. Mattering and affirming someone is showing them the indisputable evidence that they are significant.
I love that question of when have you most felt like you mattered? Because that to me drives home the point of it is in these little moments. And then how you describe these people showing evidence to others that they matter. So, do you have any sort of like frameworks or like simple practical ways that people can like do things in a way that help people show they matter?
Well, I have a question that you can ask right now, anybody, any relationship, and probably improve your relationship if whether it's at work, whether you're a leader, whether you're anybody. And the question is, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing?
Hmm.
When you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And then do more of that. We were working with a team that was struggling to turn around a really demoralized culture, and it was. I would describe it as toxic. And I'm an optimist. And we were going through the motions and nobody was really sharing and nobody was really changing. And so we just stopped and we said, let's just go out and ask this question and just do more of these things. And the leaders went out and asked their people, like, when you feel that you matter here, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And they took notes. And we brought them all back. And there were all things we could do, all things the leaders could do in their next interaction. They just didn't have that data. So that's something you can do. The second is to know, just be able to name what constitutes a moment of mattering. We've asked people this question hundreds of people this question, and there are three major components that come out, right? When people feel noticed, when they feel seen and heard. So one way to notice somebody is just ask better questions, right? Instead of how are you or how's it going or how was your day, ask questions that people can actually answer that give you the data to see them. Like, what is your attention today? What have you been thinking about most today? What are you struggling with? How can I help today? Um, the second piece is affirming people. And we talked about this, but instead of just saying thank you, go one step further and show them the difference that they make and exactly how they make it. And then the last one, showing people how they're needed. This one's really interesting. And one of the things that the people in our interviews tell us is that their leaders show them that they matter when they say some version of these five words, if it wasn't for you,
Hmm.
right? If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be possible. Because, like you said, uh, when people feel replaceable, they tend to act replaceable. Like when they feel like a warm body, don't be surprised if they go up the street for an extra 25 cents on the hour and then someone's calling Nate about the labor issues they're having, right? When someone feels like a warm body, they're going to act like it. But when someone feels irreplaceable, when someone knows how they and their work is non-disposable and they're non-dispensable, they show up and act like it. My favorite study is a study in 1913 from this French agricultural engineer. His name is Max Ringelmann. He had students pull on a rope as hard as they could as individuals, and he attached it to this device called a dynamometer that measures force. And then he had groups. He put the students in groups, same students, had them pull on a rope as in groups as hard as they could. And he wanted to know who exerted the most total force, individuals or the groups. And it was the individuals every time. And the reason why is because the individuals knew that they and their efforts were indispensable.
They matter. Yeah.
And so if you want people to show up and you want people to commit, they should know exactly how they're needed.
It just reminds me, so this question of when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? It reminds me of like simple questions you ask people about culture, motivation, and oftentimes just asking them a very direct question is the best way to get at the answer, right? And so I love this simple question for mattering. When you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And then we just do more of that. And then what a great framework about noticing, affirming, and needing. So I'm going to think about these. The thing I love about this stuff is like this applies in every daily interaction you have with friends, family, but it applies at work with colleagues, supervisors, direct reports. It applies with everyone. Everybody wants to be noticed. Everybody wants to be seen, wants to be needed, wants to be affirmed. So I just think it's so broadly applicable. Any final things you'd like to share, Zach, as we wrap up here?
Yeah, some people are like, why do you have a job? You should just, my kid says, Dad, do you help people be nice to each other? And yes, in a way I do. But the problem is a lot of this stuff, yeah, it's common sense. Everybody wants to feel that they matter. And there's a danger in common sense ideas. And the danger is that common sense usually doesn't become common practice because people think something that's common sense is easy or it just happens. But intuition does not scale. You can't scale intuition. What I mean by that, you can't repeat intuition. You can repeat skills and behaviors. And that's why I think it's so important to turn these nice ideas into behaviors. And one of the things I like to say as I'll close with this is, I'm the nicest person in the world when I'm out walking my dog.
Yeah.
I think of all the people I should thank, all the letters I should write. I mean, all the thank yous I should give. And then I get back to my desk and I got a bunch of things I have to do. And I put off these things. But schedule your good intentions, right? When you have that feeling that you should reach out to somebody, make sure that gets to the top of your to-do list. Make sure it gets on your calendar. Elevate it to the same level as any other thing on your to-do list. And do it. And that's where I think you start moving from common sense to common practice with this idea of mattering.
Just because something is simple doesn't make it easy. Just because we know we should do something doesn't mean we'll actually do it. I love the idea of scheduling your good intentions. It reminds me of work from Nick Epley. When in doubt, reach out. And so I love the idea of like if we want to not just be the nicest person when we're walking our dog, but all the time, it does take effort and we've got to
Yeah.
schedule these good intentions. Zach, so great. Love the content. Look forward to listening to this again and trying to apply all of these things you've talked about today. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Nate.